everyone, welcome to this edition of the Just Teens television program. I'm Stacy Spencer. You know what, we have such a dynamic show in store for you, and this young lady is making waves across the country. Well, when I heard about this story, the name itself is so catchy. The SoulSurfer. I said, man, she must be so cool. She must have shades, and you know, she's got her hair maybe in some braids and kind of like the Bo Derek look and all of that, and that really soul man thing. Well, anyway, if you've heard or have not even seen the movie yet, The SoulSurfer, you would do yourself an honor to get out and get it. Well, Sarah Rachel Hill, she is portrayed in the movie by Carrie Underwood, but the story is really written around the life of Bethany Hamilton, the young lady who lost her arm in an infamous shark attack. This whole platform and how an amazing story of faith, fellowship, and friendship brought these two people together in Kauai, Hawaii. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you.
I am so... Kauai?
Kauai.
You started out, you were living in the United States, and you felt this calling to Hawaii. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was in Bible college at the time, and I had just come from having a very traumatic experience where I had broken my neck and my back in a surfing accident myself, and through that was led to Bible college. And as I was at the Bible college, I began just really seeking the Lord on what His will was for my life and how could He use it, and how could I use my life to just bring Him glory and have a life of purpose. And as I began praying, Kauai came in my heart, and I remember I thought, Lord, you don't call people to Hawaii. That's my flesh. Like, I'm so sorry. And I had a radical dream that night. And in my dream, there was a stage on a beach, and there was thousands of kids around the stage. And the stage was totally empty, and I kind of was watching from a bird's eye perspective. And I began seeing kids fall to the ground dying. And someone was elbowing me saying, see, Sarah, see. Because I wasn't going or willing to go. Kids were perishing without the gospel. And so when I woke up, that dream radically shook me, and I thought, you know what, Lord, if you're calling me, I'll go. I'll go in faith, even if it sounds like a silly calling to me.
You know, when you say Kauai, and I remember reading some of the benchmarks in your resume, that when you mentioned that to family and friends, people, some laughed, and some said, are you serious?
Yeah.
And why would He call you all the way there to Kauai, Hawaii, when you have people right here in your own neighborhood that need your help? Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I think when you tell anyone you're going to be a missionary in Hawaii, it sounds pretty silly. It sounds like, oh, tough mission field. Why didn't God call me to Hawaii? And good thing my mom and my immediate family was very supportive and really never questioned whether the Lord was calling me there. But friends definitely chuckled, and especially when you're raising support to go to Hawaii to do ministry, it's a tough place to grasp and swallow. And so it was hard for me, but the Lord really likened it unto Peter stepping out of the boat. You know, when you read that passage of scripture, God called Peter to come out of the boat, but He said, come. It was almost an open invitation to anyone in the boat to step out, and only Peter was willing to. And I felt like the Lord just said, Sarah, if you're willing to step out, you're going to experience walking on water. And so I just, as hard as it was, I had to put all of the laughs and the questions behind and just go forward with the calling that I knew God had called me to.
And you literally, you do walk on water because you're a surfer.
I am a surfer.
Okay, so let's back up for a moment, because I want to tie that story together, which creates some synergy there for Bethany and yourself. What actually happened in the accident?
Well, I was in California at the time. I was 2 weeks away from starting college, where I was to play water polo. And I went out surfing with a bunch of friends, and it was a really good day, and it was a big swell. And I went to duck dive under a wave, which is where you take your board and you push it under the wave so that you don't get caught on the inside, and then you go paddle out. And when I went to duck dive, I didn't dive deep enough, and the wave was so powerful that it threw me backwards. And I landed on the back of my head on the bottom of the ocean, just slammed into the ocean. And I was, immediately I thought I broke my jaw. My mouth went numb. It seemed like I had just broken my jaw, and I went to the beach house where we were staying with my surfboard in hand because there was no one there to rescue me. And I went in and I said, I think I broke my jaw. And I could barely talk. I talked with my mouth shut. And they called the ambulance, and I was rushed to one hospital where they said, oh, you probably just have a sprained neck. And I went home and I sat 30 hours in a chair feeling like my neck was going to snap in two. And it was like a wobblehead with an infant child, you know, that's how it felt. So the next day, the concussion was so bad that my mom rushed me to another hospital in San Diego, where I was diagnosed with a broken neck. And not only a broken neck, the doctors and nurses flooding the hospital room saying, "How in the world did you just walk in here?" Apparently I was 1/16 of an inch from being paralyzed.
Do you think the body or the brain went into shock because you were on the ocean floor and you knew that you had a greater assignment and you were out there with friends?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden what did you call it when you said you take the board and
you went to duck dive.
Duck dive, okay.
Yeah.
And so did they turn around and say, where did Sarah go, or what happened?
You know, I don't remember exactly. They were so far out. They were already outside ready, like catching waves. And so I don't remember, you know, I walked by myself back, and I don't think they thought anything. Maybe I needed wax or something. They didn't think much of it until the ambulance came, and I think then everyone started to realize something's wrong.
Now, was it only your neck that was injured, or what about your spine?
Yeah, you know, I was diagnosed with a broken neck at Children's Hospital, and about 7 months into breaking my neck, I started to go to the Center for Sports Medicine for Rehabilitation, where I started losing feeling in the left side of my body, and I was falling while having physical therapy, and they, you know, that's the last thing you want is someone who has broken their neck to be falling. And they went in and did more MRIs and found out I had broken my back that same day, and they never caught it. So it was kind of like the next step, a new journey for me in part of the rehabilitation process.
When you have a near fatal but a tragic accident like that in a sport that you like, psychologically, did it take you some time to desire to get back on the water once you started to walk again? How long was the physical therapy rehab process for you?
Yeah, it was a long process. It was a good, at least a year because I ended up having to have back surgery in the process. It was a couple years before I surfed again. It really shook me enough to not know if I wanted to get back out in the water. And eventually I just thought, you know, I had so much fun out there, and think of all the times you surfed and never got hurt. You know, and so I know my limits now. If it's too big, I won't paddle out. If it's a reef break, I'm cautious of how deep the water is and where the reef is. And I just try to use wisdom when surfing now.
So now you are in this place, and it's called Kauai, and you have this strong calling of God upon your life to be able to go and minister to youth, which that's a common thread that we have. We love working with young people. And so you meet this young lady, and Bethany walks into your life. And so something radically changes for the both of you.
Yeah. You know, I met Bethany my first trip to Kauai. I went for 2 months before I moved there, just to kind of test out the waters and see if that's really where the Lord wanted me to do ministry. And she came to her and her best friend Alana came to a vacation Bible school I was doing. And that's how I met them. And we had just kindred spirits and bonded hearts right away. Where I would go surfing with the girls and hang out with them and just have a great time. And when I moved back to Kauai and began doing youth programs, Bethany and her brother Timmy were in my youth programs. Timmy in the high school and Bethany in the junior high. And you know, she was kind of one of those outstanding girls where you could take a sigh of relief knowing I don't have to worry so much about her. She's got a good head on her shoulders. She's going to make good choices. And so it was really, you know, she's just a neat girl, and it was a real pleasure and a great opportunity to have her in the youth group.
When you look at her, what are 3 synonyms that come to mind when you think about her tenacity and her strength, you know, her faith, her hope, her grace, the mercy that is upon her life? When you think about her and you use her as an example, especially what you can see that was portrayed in the movie, what would you say about her?
I would say she's steadfast, she's persistent, and she's a go-getter. You know, she really... A
typical teen.
Yeah, she really is, and I learn from her every day.
So then the story evolves, and who actually thought of the name of the SoulSurfer?
Well, SoulSurfer is a real thing. SoulSurfer is someone who surfs for the love of surfing and not necessarily the competition.
Okay.
And for Bethany, yes, she does compete competitively in surfing, but she does it for the love. She would do it whether she competed or not, because she's just born to be in the water. And so that's really where SoulSurfer came up.
You compete, or you used to compete before the accident. And do you compete now, or is it just you're a soul surfer as well, and you do it for the peace and serenity that it brings you by being on the water?
Yeah, you know, I don't compete now unless there's a contest giving away something big,
really big
and great,
yes, like a
which
Land
I never
Rover.
win, but I still like to try. No, I just surf for the love of surfing now, and I enjoy it, and I have a great time out in the water, and it's a great way to reach kids because so many kids on an island surf, and so I'm out there just talking to kids all the time, and it's a great opportunity to just share my love for them and for the water and for the Lord. It's great.
The day that the accident occurred with Bethany, were you at the beach?
I wasn't at the beach the day the accident occurred. It happened on a Halloween morning, and I was just pulling into Honolulu Elementary School, which is where I worked at the time, and I got a call from Bethany's brother, Noah, and he said, "Sarah, Bethany's been attacked by a shark." And I said, "Noah, why are you playing some kind of morbid trick on me? Like, that is not funny. This is not something I want to hear. What are you doing?" And he said, "No, I'm serious. Bethany just was attacked by a shark." And the moment he said that, the paramedic actually passed my car on the way to go pick Bethany up at the beach. So I was a few miles away from her when it happened, and I went and grabbed Noah, and we booked it to the hospital. You know, and that's when, as I was driving him to the hospital, I was just like, Lord, how do I minister to this family? What do I say to a 13-year-old girl who not only just lost her arm, potentially lost her entire surfing career, something that was so valuable and so important to her. And you know, the Lord just gave me Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the thoughts I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." And I looked at Noah and I said, "I think the Lord just spoke to me." And he's like, "What did he say?" And I said, you know, I shared that scripture, and I said, "I feel like Bethany's been a light in a dark industry, and God's going to use her as a voice now." And within 2 hours, I mean, every media outlet was calling that hospital wanting to make an interview with her and talk to her. And it's amazing the platform that the Lord has given her through this to share the gospel.
Amazing. So then there comes this great opportunity for movie scripts and movie deals and things like that. So you played an intricate part with the Hamilton family in selecting the actual script that became a movie. Was it originally produced by Sony Films?
It is, yeah. It's produced by Sony and Affirm Film. Sony, and their part of Sony is called Affirm Films.
Okay, wonderful. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, it was exciting. We went through a long process. I think we had a good 7+ scripts that we read, which, you know, just people kind of writing their own story and not keeping it. What mattered most to us is first and foremost giving God glory in Bethany's story, and second of all, if you're going to make a movie about surfing, you got to get it right. You know, we can't get the terms down, and if it's a local Hawaiian movie, it needs to be able to relate to the people of Hawaii. And so it was great that they were really open to it. And when we got to this final script, it did need some editing, but it was the closest script to what we had wanted and what we foresaw. And Sean McNamara, the director of the movie, was phenomenal in really telling Bethany's story and making sure that we kept the focus of her story as we filmed the movie. And Sony was great. They got us we had a house over there in Oahu, because it was filmed on Oahu, not Kauai. And we were able to be, the family and myself, on the set every single day, really helping to make this movie. Noah, which is Bethany's oldest brother, and his wife Becky, phenomenal. I mean, they really made the movie, helped to make the movie amazing.
So with that being said, what was the moment that you just felt like in the movie as it was being filmed that you started to tear up and cry the most?
Well, filming, I didn't tear up too much. I know when they were doing the Bethany and Sarah part, where Sarah was comforting Bethany in the movie, I did tear up a little bit on set. More when the movie was done and I was premiering it. I cried like a baby because it just brought all the raw emotions of that moment home. And for me, it wasn't that I was gone at the time as we portray in the movie, because we only have an hour and 40 minutes to tell the whole story. But I was with her in the hospital, and I sat with her every single day in the hospital as the family was dealing with the media and dealing with all of the stuff that came with this, and kind of making themselves okay with it. You know, I sat with Bethany in the hospital room, and we had some pretty intense moments together, and just her questioning and her wondering, and just knowing that God allowed me to be there just to be her comfort, and continue to point her to the Lord, and try to answer whatever questions I could that she had.
What was the most difficult question that Bethany asked that you had to ponder, maybe even stumble, maybe even stutter to give the answer? Because when a tragedy happens, and one of the things that I have been called in to do is when a teenager ends their life suddenly from being bullied, you know, how do you go in and explain to a parent, you know, that their child has committed suicide, or any loss of any kind? It brings a heartbreak and death to the parent. Something inside of them as a parent dies. So you're talking to this actual vessel now that has been through this tragic situation. And what do you say? What was it like?
I can think of two moments that were the hardest moments. The first one was when Bethany came out of surgery, and I came into her hospital room. She stopped everything she was doing. She looked right at me and she said, "Sarah, I prayed the whole way in, and I knew I couldn't cry. If I cried, she'd start crying, and I just had to swallow my tears." And I looked at her and I said, "Bethany, that's the best thing you could have done."
Yeah.
And the second thing she said to me right after that was, "I'm so glad this happened to me and not Alana." And she said, "You know, I think I'm ready to handle something like this," whereas her best friend might not have been ready. And to have a 13-year-old girl have that kind of a thinking process blew me away. And the second hardest moment for me was when her and I were sitting in the hospital room, and nobody had brought up surfing. I think it was about day 3 from her losing her arm, and we didn't talk about surfing yet. And she looked at me, and she had said, "Oh, maybe I'll be a pro soccer player now, or a pro photographer." And I just was like, "Yeah, sky's the limit." And this one morning I walked in and she said, "Sarah, do you think I'll ever surf again?" And I just looked at her, and I had been thinking about that. And that moment, I didn't have an answer before, but that moment the Lord just really showed up, and I just looked at her and I said, "You know, God's given you such a gift in surfing, and I think just because you lost your arm doesn't mean you've lost your gift in surfing." And so from that moment on, she began talking with her dad about surfing again, and she returned to the water 3 weeks after losing her arm to a shark attack, surfing on her own. Okay.
I would assume that in surfing, you have to have a strong lower core, meaning those quads and hamstrings have to be very, very strong for support. But a lot of the balance, does that come from your lower lumbar, or is it your whole carriage through here that helps you to balance on this board, and then when you're riding a wave?
Well, balancing comes from head to toe on a surfboard, and a lot with your arms. And a lot of times you'll swing your arms to turn the board or to do a trick, and so really it entails your whole body, and not to mention you're paddling out, and you got to paddle into the waves, which you're paddling pretty quick to catch waves. And so it definitely takes all of you
to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
As a surfer, any special diet, or I shouldn't say diet, but eating regimen, because you can share something here that we can share around the country with every young person, whether they desire to do soccer or surfing.
Yeah.
What would be the diet?
I think with any sport, eating healthy and having a nutritional balance. Bethany really, really is on eating healthy, and you know, that's her goal. And I think if you want to excel or achieve any sport, you should definitely eat healthy. I did a cleanse this year, and it's one that Bethany has done before, and it changed my life. And I went on just all vegetables and no gluten-free diet, no gluten, no processed food. And I couldn't believe how much better I felt. And so, you know, I think for anyone, if you want to feel good, even if you're not playing sports, if you just want to feel healthy and active and have a zeal for life, you know, eating healthy, your body needs those nutrients, and it's so important.
Do you drink a lot of water?
Yes. Yeah, the water's harsh and the humidity is very high, and so we drink a ton of water. And it's funny because you start to not realize that you drink a lot of water until you travel. And then when you travel and nobody drinks as much water as I drink. I mean, honestly.
I drink a gallon a day.
Really?
Yes,
That's
because
awesome.
I work out a lot.
I just went and bought a gallon at the store today because I thought I need water as I'm here in Florida. I need more water than what I have. And so, yes, we drink a ton of water, a ton of water, and green tea is very popular in Hawaii. A lot of people like green tea.
Wonderful.
So those are the drinks of choice. But yeah, water's very important. And especially if you work out. I drink usually about 4 large water bottles a day. So
that's amazing. But that tells, because your skin is flawless. That's what keeps it.
As is yours.
Well, we try, but that water helps.
It really does.
So if we age to be 100, we'll probably still look 50.
Yeah.
50, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to share that is powerful that I haven't asked you up until this point? Because there's a few more things that I want to ask that take us into our next level of where we're going with this whole experience. I'm just honored that you're here.
Awesome to be here. You know, I think one thing I'd love to share with young people is, as much as Bethany has a platform now and she's famous and people know her everywhere she goes, 2 days before she was attacked by a shark, she and her mom were reading her Bible together on her bed, and she said, "Mom, will you pray for me? Will you pray that God would use my life?" And, you know, sometimes the way God answers prayers is so different than the way we think He should. And through that prayer, God has used her life with one arm way more than He could with 2. And so I guess I just want to encourage young people that, you know, if you want your life to have purpose and to be used of God, just ask Him and He will use it. And even if you've had a tough life, if you haven't had the easiest life and you come from a single family home like I did, and you know, my father was very abusive growing up, and I never thought God could use my life. And to know that just being willing, He just wants a willing vessel, and when you're willing, He will use it. And He'll use it in ways you could have never fathomed.
Do you want to expound on that a little bit? Because I think you've said so many powerful things right there that I couldn't have asked any better. And I think that you have done an amazing thing. Speak about the home life, because a lot of young people today are coheving outside the home because home life is tough.
Yeah, it is. For me, it was very difficult growing up in an abusive home, and my father really focused the abuse on me out of the 5 kids. And so I, growing up, was very bitter towards the Lord, and I thought, I never questioned if God was real. I just knew in my heart He was. But I thought, there's no way God can use my life because or does He love me because He's allowed these things to happen. And I was very ill. I had numerous surgeries growing up from different illnesses, major stomach surgery in 6th grade, and you know, ankle surgery. I just was always, there was always trials, there was always tribulations, and I really had convinced myself that God did not love me. And you know, that is a lie from the enemy. And if he can get us feeling sorry for ourselves or looking at our situations and feeling hopeless, then he's got us right where he wants us. You know, but when we desire to rise above that and to bring purpose through the pain, then life's worth living. I would have never known that because of all I went through, God would use all that to bring me to Kauai to minister to kids. And not just Bethany. Bethany, hugely, yes, but everyday kids. I deal with kids that are dealing with suicide and kids who have lost their parents to drug overdoses and abusive homes. And you know, what the enemy's meant for evil, God's used for good in my life. And he wants to do that in your lives, and especially if you're being bullied, you know, to be assured and happy with who you are and know that you are precious to the Lord. And it doesn't matter what people say. You know your value is in Christ, and that is so important.
And what are some of the fun things you like to do besides surfing? Is there anything else that you do that that you? I know you said you're a makeup artist.
Yes, I love to do makeup.
Okay.
Girls are always asking me, Sarah, will you do my makeup? I love to hike. I love to live an active life. Those things are so fun, and hanging out with kids. I have kids at my house all the time.
What is the most profound question that you asked recently and you got a response that you were not really expecting?
I had a girl come over to my house. She called me last minute and she said, Sarah, can I come over? And I was like, sure. And I was tired and I was kind of winding down and ready to shower and go to bed. And she came over and she just seemed kind of quiet and not herself for being an outgoing young girl. And I just said, you know, what's going on? And she just began to share with me her struggles, that she had battled dealing with drugs before, and she was really in the battle right there and really wanting to go and make bad choices and being promiscuous and you know, just giving herself away, and she was really struggling with that. And it was so freeing to know that she could be honest with me and know that it didn't matter. You know, I always tell kids and adults, you know, we should have a few people in our life that we can be totally transparent with, who aren't going to judge us because we're struggling.
That's right. Judging is the key, because with young people, they feel scared and inferior anyway, and they deal with a lot of fear of being accepted, loving, being loved, am I lovable? And then if I tell you the truth of what's really going on, then I know I don't rate anywhere on your card now.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And I loved that she was vulnerable with me. And I just told her that is such a great place, because there's so many people in the church today struggling and aren't saying anything. And God's going to honor that. And I was able to share and pray with her. And, you know, I always tell the kids, I will always tell you what you need to hear, but my love will never, ever change.
Just as I promised before, I told you that we were going to get on the water, the ocean waves, and of course, I must have told a little bit of a fib. The ocean is not ready for me today, but I'm going to join Paddle Boat Joe and Sarah Rachel Hill, and we're going to get in the paddle boat today with Sandy and Pearl. Come along and enjoy the endeavor. Paddle Boat Joe is going to take us on a nice tour here on the beautiful waters at the Trade Winds Resort and the Sandpiper in St. Petersburg, Florida. And now our friends have decided to join us. They're called the Swan Twins. We're getting a workout today. I had no idea being with the SoulSurfer would turn into this. Well, for those of you who are wondering what are we doing, Sarah and I have decided to have the Sarah and Stacy Show. Of course, this is a part of Teen Time Productions, and you know, we just had some great fun out there feeding Sandy and feeding Pearl, the nice swans here at the Trade Winds Resort, St. Petersburg, Florida. Anything else you'd like to share with us as we begin to wrap down? And if you had just 2 minutes, the last 2 minutes of your life, the most powerful 2 minutes of your life, the only 2 minutes of your life, to say something very powerful to a young person, what would it be?
I would tell them to never give up and to live life to the fullest, that your life does have a purpose and God does have a plan for you, and just look to Him and find what that is. I really live by 1 Corinthians 15:58. It says, "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain unto the Lord." And you know, we do it for Him. We don't do it for glory from people. And if He brings those things to the forefront to be seen, great. And if not, great. Your life does have a purpose, and live with that and be steadfast in that.
Wonderful. That's our segment for this edition of the Just Teens television program.
Thank you. Always trials, there was always tribulations, and I really had convinced myself that God did not love me. And you know, that is a lie from the enemy. And if he can get us feeling sorry for ourselves or looking at our situations and feeling hopeless, then he's got us right where he wants us. You know, but when we desire to rise above that and to bring purpose through the pain, then life's worth living. I would have never known that because of all I went through, God would use all that to bring me to Kauai, to minister to kids, and not just Bethany. Bethany, hugely, yes, but everyday kids.